Hey YouTube, it's the 40 Watt Garage. Welcome to the channel, or welcome back. Today's project is engineering and fabricating a new mount for my rear view mirror. I could not use the top of the windshield frame as I did previously, so I've got to come up with something else for the rear view mirror. I'm not a fan of the traditional mounting where there's the post that is screwed to the dash cowling. I don't like that. I'm gonna come up with something different. So stay tuned. What we're gonna try to do is convert this mirror, the small size stainless mirror, convert that to use a more modern or contemporary mount where you glue the little metal puck to the glass and it has the swivel joints. What I'm going to try to do is cannibalize this mechanism and adapt it to fit back here. The other day I went to my local automotive salvage recycler yard and I picked up a couple of these mirrors. I think 2 mirrors and then some parts for the grand total of $5. And what I'm going to try to do is cannibalize these and use the parts. These were off of late 90s era Chevy Suburban, Chevy pickup. I wanted something specifically with this small mounting puck. A lot of the newer cars have got this big clunky thing with a molded plastic console form around it. I just wanted the simple mounting foot with the swivel mechanism, nothing big and clunky. So I grabbed a few of these and we're going to take it apart and see what we can do with it. Well, I've poked around and looked at this thing and I don't know how to get it apart other than maybe with a little brute force. I don't care, I'm not going to save the mirror, but I put on a pair of leather gloves in case I do crack the glass. I don't need a trip to the ER to get my hand stitched back together. So I'm just going to attack this thing and see if I can get the guts out and salvage the swivels, what I need. I want to save this pot metal casting that's attached to the rear swivel. I'm guessing that this plastic is molded around it and trapped. So if I can break the plastic away, without damaging the casting. There we go. Junk. And we have liberated the swivel mechanism from the mirror. Looking at this piece, there's a square lug molded in between these circles, and then you can see the parting line for the mold where they injection mold this die cast swivel, and then that line extends through the center on the end. So I'm going to use this line as a reference point And then I think I'm going to shave off the two sides of the circle down to that flat. And then I can use this as my guideline as to how to file this off or shave this off. This is pot metal casting. You really can't use a grinding wheel, it'll load it up. So I think I'm just going to get a nice sharp file and clamp it in the vise. Maybe hacksaw off the bulk of it and then use a file to bring it down to final size. See how it goes. Well, after quite a bit of fiddling, I was able to clamp this in my vise. You can see my reference line, and using a scale on that flat inside, I was able to clamp it down to where that flat is parallel with the jaws. And I'm just going to use the top of my vise jaws as a guide and hacksaw off those half circles. I'm going to have to go easy with this because it's not clamped in there very securely. And like I said, I'm just going to use the tops of my vise jaws as a guide. That is what I'm after. Do a little more cleanup when I get the other side cut. Okay, we've got the sides shaved down to the thickness of that center shaft. Gonna leave these ears. And now I'm gonna drill a hole through the center of this meatiest part. I took apart the mirror brackets on the supplied mirror, measured the hole, and came up with the numbers. I'm also measuring the outside of where the threaded part is punched in. And I need to make a clearance hole for this. So let's go over to the drill press. Well, after a very fiddly time trying to get this jigged up and into the vise, I've got a block underneath, center punched a little divot for my hole. I'm going to drill a pilot and then we'll change over to the correct bit. We're going to through drill this, so I'm going to move my block. We're going to have to take it easy. I'm going to have to drill a slight counter bore, a little larger than the primary hole. And that is it. I'm going to assemble this for a test fit right now, but it's going to be backwards because I don't have clearance yet. So I've got the threaded piece that's going to go into that counter bore, and then the other piece with the through hole. See if I calculated this right to get thread engagement. All right, and they do line up. And the thickness of the aluminum or pot metal block is slightly smaller than the diameter of the old ball end, so we should still be able to grip the mirror. If not, maybe we tweak these little ears down or make it fit, but this is what I was after right now. My plan is to slice off the old ball swivel socket on both pieces and cut this off just where that tapered area goes to the flat. It's pretty much right along this area right here. And just cut that off square on both sides. I think I'm going to put a cutoff wheel in the Dremel and slice through these. Okay, I've scribed a line just at the front edge of that chamfer on both pieces. Might be a little hard to see, but and I'm going to use the Dremel, and I'm going to do a rough cut first to get rid of the bulk, and then I will go back and either dress it up with the Dremel or by hand filing. Well, here is nearly the finished product. The trimming off of the excess on the brackets, it still grips and squeezes the mirror with enough to hold itself, and it articulates nice and smooth back here. So now it'll be take it apart, clean up the black pieces, give them a new shot of paint so it looks pretty, and then final assembly. Well, here it is assembled after a coat of paint on the black parts. And I think this worked out really well. Now I just have to put it on the car. Went down to the auto parts store and picked up one of these kits, and this is specifically for rebonding one of the little metal tabs back onto the windshield glass. So the next step is going to be moving into the car and following the instructions on this and getting that little metal puck glued back onto the glass. Well, the next step is to install that little metal button onto the windshield. And what I have done here is with a Sharpie, I've made a mark or a line down the center of the windshield. And then off camera, I sat in the car with the mirror, held it up against the glass where it would give me the best view and best approximate where my mirror used to be, because I really liked it being up high and in the center instead of down on the dash. So what I've done is made my marks, and then I have a straight edge taped to the inside of the glass, and I used a small torpedo level and tape that straight edge level on the glass at the bottom of where my little puck has to go. So now I have a ledge that after I clean the glass and put the adhesive on, I can set that metal puck on the straight edge and then press it to the glass. And it'll stay level while I hold it in place until the adhesive sets up. The adhesive kit for the mirror has very specific instructions, and I won't quote them here, but for best results you have to follow these instructions to the letter. I've used these kits before and they do work, but the proper preparation and following the instructions is a must. Okay, that was 1:30. And apply. Two drops of adhesive. And get it centered, resting on my little ledge. And go for broke. Okay, well that was the same timer as before. So that was 1:30. All right, I can set myself another alarm for 30 minutes. And that is my minimum time before I can reattach the mirror. I'm gonna remove my little bracket now that this is set. Had a little squeeze out on my scale. So I think I'm going to get a straight edge razor and clean off the windshield a little bit before this turns into concrete. I'm going to be very careful not to bump the little metal puck, but at least I can get some of this overage off before it sets up fully. Very, very careful not to disturb that puck. I want to get some of this squeeze out off of here before it sets. I think using 2 drops was just right to cover the, once it squished onto the glass, it spread out, and I had just a little bit coming out the bottom. In this case, having a little too much is a good thing. Not enough is a bad thing. We're gonna let that set up for half an hour. Got a little acetone on a rag. I'm gonna clean off my Sharpie marks. see some of that squeeze out around the little button. Once this sets up, I'll come back with some glass cleaner and the razor blade and scrape it off for real. Figured while I'm waiting for my rear view mirror adhesive to set up, I might as well reinstall my sun visors. This is probably by far the easiest change to make. Just flipping the mounting tabs solved the problem of interference. Just try to get them centered on the tabs in both places. And one more little job knocked off the list. Now this is the final installment of relocating the rear view mirror. I've got the windshield all cleaned up, scraped any excess adhesive that might have squeezed out on the glass. And installation isn't much more than putting this thing on and tightening the retaining screw. Drop it down over the button. And snug up the screw. Think about doing this modification. It's not very difficult, doesn't cost very much, and I think it looks good.